Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahushua, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahushua, Bahashem, Rekakwadash. Double honor to the apostles, the elders, salutations to you, sincere brothers, teaching in truth and in sincerity. This lesson will be entitled Queen Anne Boleyn Was a Jake, and her connection with King James of England. My source, RT.com, and this article is entitled, What Next? A White Rosa Parks Internet Clashes Over Black Model Cast to Play English Queen Anne Boleyn. This article was published on the 30th of October, 2020. First and foremost, Queen Anne Boleyn was a Jake. She was not a so-called white woman. And she had a strong / significant connection with King James, who also was a Jake, a so-called black man. And it states, black model Jodie Turner-Smith is set to play 16th century Queen of England Anne Boleyn, who was, of course, a white woman. The head-scratching choice tore the internet apart, many suggesting it amounted to cultural appropriation. Turner-Smith's turn as the medieval monarch. When you investigate medieval, it means Middle Ages, also a term that is synonymous with the Dark Ages. Esau knows the truth, okay? He knows we were ruling during this time frame. This is the reason why you have Jodie Turner-Smith cast to play Queen Anne Boleyn. This is a subliminal message. The picture on the left is correct. The picture on the right is incorrect. Was announced on Friday. The project was described by entertainment outlet Deadline as being a 3-part convention-defying psychological thriller by Channel 5, set to shine a feminist light on the life of Boleyn, famously sent to her death by her husband, King Henry VIII. Also, King Henry VIII was a Jake. Social media quickly began overflowing with complaints about Turner-Smith playing a white queen. Commenters demanded historical accuracy and called it cultural appropriation, a term usually used when white people emulate other cultures. The picture on the left is historical accuracy. The picture on the right is cultural appropriation. And that term is defined as when white people emulate other cultures. Okay. Many said that logically the Turner-Smith casting as Boleyn should be no more acceptable than a white person playing a well-known black historical figure. According to Stephanie, Anne Boleyn was a white woman. Negative. Why would she be played by a black actress? Because Queen Anne Boleyn was a Jake, a so-called black woman, and Esau knows. That's why. According to Kathy, Anne Boleyn was white. A white person would not be picked to play a well-known historical black person. It would be classed as whitewashing. And Queen Anne Boleyn was whitewashed. Look at the picture on the right. The same applies the other way around, in my opinion. Another comment by Sharon: I adore Tudor history and also the House of Tudors, or Salakia, the House of Tudor or Jakes. I adore Tudor history. We have a wealth of knowledge about the court of King Henry VIII, who was a Jake, and his marriages. We know as fact that Anne Boleyn and all of his wives were white women. Negative. So this drama would not be dealing with actual history. No need for me to watch. And like I continue to state, Queen Anne Boleyn was a Jake, and she had a significant connection with King James. Okay, let's prove this. My source, wikipedia.org. And Anne Boleyn was Queen of England from 1533 to 1536 as the second wife of King Henry VIII. Keep this in mind. Their marriage and her execution for treason and other charges by beheading made her a key figure in the political and religious upheaval that marked the start of the English Reformation. This picture or this painting supposed to be dark skin, okay? It states, Anne was crowned Queen of England on the 1st of June, 1533. On the 7th of September, she gave birth to the future Queen Elizabeth I. Henry was disappointed to have a daughter rather than a son, but hoped a son would follow and profess to love Elizabeth. Anne subsequently had 3 miscarriages, and by March 1536, Henry was courting Jane Seymour. In order to marry Seymour, Henry had to find reasons to end the marriage to Anne. Henry VIII had Anne investigated for high treason in April 1536. On the 2nd of May, she was arrested and sent to the Tower of London, where she was tried before a jury of peers, including Henry Percy, her former betrothed, and her uncle Thomas Howard, 3rd Duke of Norfolk. She was convicted on the 15th of May and beheaded 4 days later. Modern historians view the charges against her, which included adultery, incest, and plotting to kill the king, as unconvincing. Some say that Anne was also accused of witchcraft, but the indictments make no mention of that. So in a nutshell, Anne Boleyn was the second wife of Henry VIII. And out of their union, Queen Elizabeth I was conceived. Let's focus on that. Same source. Elizabeth I was Queen of England and Ireland from 17th of November 1558 until her death on the 24th of March 1603, sometimes called the Virgin Queen, Gloriana, or Good Queen Bess. Elizabeth was the last of the 5 monarchs of the House of Tudor. And like I stated previously, the House of Tudor were all Jakes. Elizabeth was the daughter of Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn, his second wife, who was executed 2.5 years after Elizabeth's birth. It was expected that Elizabeth would marry and produce an heir. However, despite numerous courtships, she never did. She was eventually succeeded by her first cousin twice removed, James VI of Scotland, laying the foundation for the kingdom of Great Britain. Okay, and it states she had earlier been responsible for the imprisonment and execution of James' mother, Mary, Queen of Scots. Queen of Scots. Okay, so King James and Queen Elizabeth were related, but how? Same source, King James VI and the first was King of Scotland as James VI from the 24th of July, 1567, and King of England and Ireland as James I from the union of the Scottish and English crowns on the 24th of March, 1603, until his death in 1625. And this painting or picture is supposed to be brown skin, okay, such as this. Okay, King James was a so-called black man. He was a Jake. All right. Elizabeth I was the last of Henry VIII's descendants. Keep this in mind. And James was seen as her most likely heir through his great-grandmother, Margaret Tudor. Remember, the House of Tudor, okay? James was seen as her most likely heir through his great-grandmother, Margaret Tudor, who was Henry VIII's elder sister. Okay? So, they were kin due to the association that King James' great-grandmother was Margaret Tudor, who was the elder sister of Henry VIII. And Henry VIII was the father of Elizabeth I. And Elizabeth I's mother was Queen Anne Boleyn, the second wife of Henry VIII. This is the connection. King James was able to become King of England and Ireland due to the fact that Queen Elizabeth did not have any heirs. She was childless, okay? Now remember, we talked about the House of Tudor. The House of Tudor, same source, was an English royal house of Welsh origin. Okay, now let's jump down. From 1485 until 1603, with 6 monarchs in that period, you had Henry VII, Henry VIII, Edward VI, Lady Jane Grey, Mary I, and Elizabeth I. So Elizabeth I was the last ruler out of the House of Tudor. And remember, King James' great-grandmother was Margaret Tudor, who was what? The elder sister of Henry VIII, who was the father of Elizabeth I. And Elizabeth I's mother was Queen Anne Boleyn. That is the connection, a significant connection amongst Queen Anne Boleyn and King James. And Esau knows this is the reason why Queen Anne Boleyn is being cast by a black model named Jodie Turner Smith, because Esau knows they were all Jakes. Okay, let's get some precepts. Job 13:4, but ye are forgers of lies. Hence the painting on the right. See, Esau controls this entire system, beginning with the nobility of Edom, referring to the international bankers, such as the Rothschilds. Okay, forgers, when you go into that Hebrew term, it means plaster. And how do they plaster this false information? Through their history, okay, their history books, their school systems, all right, their media sources, their movies, their paintings, so on and so forth. But ye are forgers of lies, ye are all physicians of no value. Let's get Psalm 64, verse 7. But the Most High shall shoot at them with an arrow, referring to the Edomites, beginning with their nobility. Suddenly shall they be wounded, so they shall make their own tongue to fall upon themselves. And their tongue is falling upon themselves. Hence, black model cast to play English Queen Anne Boleyn. This is a subliminal message, right? All that see them shall flee away. Last precept. Slovakia. Revelation 12:9. And the great dragon was cast out, that great dragon, that old serpent, referring to who? The nation of Edom. Okay? Beginning with their nobility, they control this entire system called the devil and Satan, which deceived the whole world, hence the Renaissance. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. And this is how the nation of Edom deceived the entire world. All right. So, in a nutshell, Queen Anne Boleyn had a significant connection with King James. Okay. Yes, King James. Queen Anne Boleyn was the second wife of Henry VIII. And Henry VIII and Queen Anne Boleyn had a daughter by the name of Elizabeth I. Elizabeth I did not have any children. Therefore, King James was able to become King James of England and King James of Ireland due to the fact Queen Elizabeth I did not have any children. Elizabeth I and King James were related. King James' great-grandmother by the name of Margaret Tudor was the elder sister of Henry VIII, who was the father of Queen Elizabeth, which also proves that the house of Tudor were all Jakes. Hence the medieval times / Middle Ages. Lord, will you're edified. Shalom.